Okay, I would like now to welcome our two distinguished guests. Where do you sit, actually? Talal Afifi, Ibram Snoopy Ahmed. Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. This film is a lot to take. The first time I watched it was during Berlin Film Festival, and like the atmosphere in the cinema was really tense, and I can feel that any screening I visited with this movie was a similar situation. So I want to just start really easy. How are you doing at the moment?
A little bit hungry.
Always good.
Yeah, but I mean, we just keep fighting, whether it's by any means of arts, music videos, films. Anyway, we just keep highlighting what's happening in Sudan. And we, because even if war stopped, we still have a fight, unresolved fight. So we're continuing that message.
Yeah, shukran jazilan. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. Yes, we have nothing but hope. And earlier, one of the Syrian writers, Abdullah Wannous, said, نحن محكومون بالأمل. We have to keep hope. And as we have seen in the film, in this scene, the camel keeps having the round. So this is not our destiny, but this is our generation part in this whole destiny of keeping fighting and keeping to be strong and trying to bring it up.
Is the camel actually Ibrahim Shaddad reference?
It was just a coincidence.
Okay.
Also, a lot of people thought that
that's funny. Yeah.
It's a reference of his film.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure the audience has a lot of questions that I would like to extract later, so I hope it's okay if I start with two questions. In the film, we see that you started the project actually before the outbreak of the war, so before April 2023. And then, of course, with the events unfolding, you had to shift everything. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on this journey from starting the project in KHARTOUM and then having to shift everything into an exile? And we learn also from the movie that everyone is sort of scattered in mostly East Africa, but I know also members of your team are in Europe, some of them. So how did this project transform over time?
The start was when I met Phil Cox at Sudan Film Factory in 2022. And Sudan was very vibrant and full of hope. People were on the streets. Young people were writing the new literature of Sudan. And we all Sudanese people from all generations were looking forward. And Phil and me thought, let's make a film about the city. And why don't we write a new narrative about the city? A narrative told by different perspectives, 4 stories of 4 perspectives, and untold stories about Sudan. Not the story of the middle class, not the story of the BBC, not the story of foreign agencies, but stories of Sudanese people. So we started searching for filmmakers, and we thought that bringing 4 filmmakers will make a strong narrative, a strong story about the city. And at the beginning, we wanted to have the film as a poetic, cinematic narrative about Khartoum, a city in East Africa that is living a hope. We started with the directors. Snoopy was one of them. And what happened that the war came. So we had to stop the project. We'd have done 75% of it. We had to stop the project to evacuate all the participants, the filmmakers, directors, and the participants, Khadmallah, Majdi, Jawad, Lucan, Wilson. and to evacuate them to Port Sudan, to somewhere safe in Sudan, and then from Port Sudan to Nairobi. So we spent all the money we had to evacuate the people, the team, and to spend it on having their new starts, plus having papers. For example, Lucan and Wilson, they never had papers. They were just working. They had no passports, nothing. So this is how the film flipped. Instead of being a film about Khartoum, it became a film about the people who lived in Khartoum and how they made their survival.
Do you want to add to that?
We, as Talal said, we had to change the story. We were this close of finishing the film, and in Ramadan, war happened, and we had to move from city to another city. I went first to Nairobi with the production manager, and also, after months of being away from the production, we started to figure out, is there any way to continue the film, or what are we doing, with the film? So little by little, the directors first came, to Kenya, and then we had, a couple of workshops and brainstorm sessions of how to continue the film, because we couldn't film them getting out of Sudan. So we had to find an alternative way of how to tell those stories and the memories that, they went through, while they were in Khartoum. So then we decided to bring them to Nairobi. And it was a challenge because, like Talal said, some of them didn't have, legal documents. And on top of that, they were in danger zones, areas where there's no internet, and it was difficult access to reach out to them. We needed to find someone from another city to go and check if they're still alive. And then after confirming that they're there, try to find a way of, packing whatever they can pack, and then get them out to Port Sudan, and then again to Nairobi.
I think when talking also to other colleagues, one of the biggest strengths of this movie is, and you kind of already went into the direction, but it's not the stereotypical ethnographic gaze that you have on a story coming from somewhere in Africa, but it's really, as you say, extremely complex personal stories about not only a place, but the people from this place also. And I think it's in itself, therefore, also really a testament of a highly post-colonial project, right? Because it sort of challenges the Western gaze. And I think that is also because you managed to bring together content and form so much. You were talking also about the poetry, the poetic sides of it. And I was wondering, how did you decide to blend this documentary reenactment, surrealist fantasy? I mean, there's so many different elements in it. Like, how did you come to decide to make this hybrid form? And and how do you think also this allows you to maybe make a different film from a traditional documentary film?
I guess that, at some point we used that kind of, the missing parts of the film and turn it into an advantage. So at some point we weren't sure what we were doing. So we tried to explore everything, interviews, green screen. We watched a couple of movies on how they, directors, recreated scenes. And also we had an animator. He was a friend of Phil. So also having worked together in the past, and they also recreated some of the, scenes in other movies. So we used all that kind of knowledge and tried to explore all these different things into one, big mix. And we weren't sure how much we were using animation or how much we were using interviews, but we had to make sure that we have enough footage to keep exploring around, in the post-production.
Also, I trust and believe that this film, for me, and I hope it was also for the film team, it was a great opportunity to revisit ourselves as Sudanese people. me as Talal, as someone working in the intellectual field, in arts and culture, I have always talked about people. I have met someone like Khadmallah, and I have met children like Lucan and Wilson in the street. They come and collect the garbage from my house, and I met Khadmallah. I had some fancy tea sitting by her at the street. But by making this film, I really knew the stories behind these people whom I have always seen on daily basis in Khartoum, but we never got along with each other's. And this you can recognize and see in the scene of when Khadmallah told the story of the guy who was shot, and when she cried, Majdi, the guy who is from my class, he was not able to come in the beginning and to hug, to make this group hug, and they just called him. I needed this thing. It was like a rehabilitation for me. And how we made this, maybe we tell this in few words here on theater, but it was really a tough journey to bring these people out from Khartoum to Port Sudan, to Nairobi, to bring them to a safe place. The war happened in April. Till July, 3 months, we did not have a clue where these children are, where Khadmallah is, where Majdi is. We were just sending to each other, do you know where Majdi is, where the children are, where Khadmallah is? Just in July and in September, we got along together and we made it. So then we had this creative workshop in Nairobi, and where everyone, not just the directors, not just the producers, even the participants, they had their say and statements that we want this film to be in this direction, and we want to tell this and this and this. So maybe in the film we write that these are the directors and these are the writers, but all of the ones you have seen in the screen are the writers and the directors.
I think that actually comes across very beautifully, and the scene you were just describing shows perfectly also how this project was for you, I'm guessing, form of healing, right? It supported you in this process. Could you maybe talk a little bit about this participatory process of filmmaking?
I guess that you know, we had to like give thanks to the idea of, you know, having all these layers in Sudan, because in the community, because this is what fragmented Sudan in the first place, and it's still being done through hate speeches, you know, by both warring, you know, fractions of the war. And we wanted to show the Sudanese people like these different layers. People like Mahdi, what are the kids doing? Do you even notice them? You just drive by with your car, but you never noticed their story. When we came to Nairobi, and obviously, you know, going through war and all those kind of things, the things that you see on the street, I was lucky because I went, you know, the first week of war, I went to another city. But the more time you spend in Khartoum, the more violence you see. So when the directors first came to Nairobi, we went through like this therapy session, and how to like, you know, deal with it. Because the worst thing about, you know, being traumatized is not being aware that you're traumatized. You can still eat, sleep, drink normally, and you don't feel it. But when someone tells you all these symptoms, then you can figure out, oh, I'm not okay, and which is a lot of people are going through this. So then we kind of like channeled that, you know, healing process to the participants. And we had to make sure that when they're ready to tell their story, then we can start filming. And what was very interesting is that they were even more excited than us directors to tell, you know, their stories and what they went through. And it wasn't like we were forcing them, you know, to tell like, can you tell me this, this and this? But when we just, you know, recorded, and they just kept telling stories and stories. And if you wanted to make like a long film, it would have been like 4 or 5 hours, but we had to like cut it down. But they went through so many details and we just had to, like, you know, select few things, but they were very open to open up.
Yeah, I think that's also because the whole atmosphere felt very safe. I mean, we also see images of how you direct, but it's not, as you say, it's not sort of luring out the stories, but it's really more like, are you ready to share? Can you go into that more? So the whole process felt very safe. Like, how did you think? Like, how long did it take to get to this point? And you said you were supported by someone, you had psychological support also in the process, right?
Yeah, in the beginning we had like a psychologist, and you know, we healed ourselves first, but in order for us to show the participants how we want them to tell the story, we reenacted some of our own, you know, traumas and what we went through, not necessarily during war, but just like things that we went through, you know, in our life, and we had to reenact a little bit just so they can have an idea of what we need from them and how long and what are the details, you know, that we want them to tell us.
And yes, it seems to be safe, especially the part of Nairobi where we have the green screen. But I have to say it was not very safe. Starting the film in Sudan, we had to shoot with smartphones. The whole film was shot by smartphones, except the scenes which we have the green screen. All the film was shot by iPhones. And
incredible.
Yeah.
I would have not guessed.
Because in Sudan we had this military regime, the culture in general, camera is not friendly in Sudan, and having to shoot all these demonstrations and all this violence needed us to be very mobile and very light. So we used these smartphones. In the end, when we went to Nairobi, we used this DSLR to shoot the green screens. And it was planned that we have this rehabilitation phase, and then to have the storytelling phase, and then the shooting phase. The whole thing took us for about 3 years. It was planned to be done in 2 months at the beginning.
You are traveling a lot with this film right now. It gets a lot of positive recognition. You have also received the Peace Prize of the Heinrich Böll Foundation. Did you ever show this movie to, or in Sudan, or to Sudanese, only Sudanese community?
I was talking to Snoopy this morning that we are redefining Sudan now. We need to redefine Sudan. So we need to redefine who are the Sudanese people. We are talking about diasporas in Egypt, in Nairobi, in Uganda, in Doha, in Qatar, in Abu Dhabi, in Germany, in UK, wherever, name it. So maybe our first big Sudanese community screening will be in Doha. This will be the Arab world premiere. After that, we are looking forward to Egypt. There is also a big Sudanese community. But wherever we go, we always find Sudanese people.
That's true. It's here the case.
Yeah.
I would like, before I now hand the mic to the audience, we have a very distinguished guest in the audience, Nisrin El-Saim. Thank you for being here. Nisrin is a human rights activist, a very important loud voice in the Sudanese cause, and she's been speaking a lot also about the climate aspect in this conflict, which actually, yes, please come here. Actually, take my seat. I think, Nisrin, you have a very important addition to the way the conflict is portrayed unfortunately, it received this very sort of also problematic naming, framing in Western media now. Sudan is often now called the forgotten war. And as much as this is already not super nuanced, I also think that the whole climate aspect of this conflict is also super under-researched or also under-highlighted. Maybe you could give us a bit of more context of how the climate aspect also speaks into it.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, and to be very quick, I could very much relate to a lot of people in the movie or the film, because I had to drive my little car with my son. He was 8 months old, from Al Ma'mura, which is very south Khartoum, into Wadi Sayyidina, which is where the air base, and it took me 7 hours to reach there. And at the moment, I had to decide if I want my son to have an easy kill if anything happened, or maybe I give him a chance to survive. So I had to choose between put him in a safety chair in the car, but he will be high, so he could be easily shot, or down. But then I was like, okay, what if I got shot? Then he might stay there for days before he dies. So I had to basically choose how should my kid die. And he was only 8 months. So I could very relate to that. And another thing happened to me while I was driving. A bunch of RSF people came to me and screaming. And I thought, okay, that's it. We are definitely dead. And then surprisingly, they said, we think one of your tires is lacking air. And I was like, really? Let the tire go to hell. Do you think it's the right time? So I was definitely like 100% that I'm dead. And for the next half an hour driving that car, I couldn't see anything. I was driving, but my brain was still there. And I think also we die a little bit every day. We don't have to be dead, but we die every day. And for me, the war did not start on the 15th of April. It started on the 25th of October 2021 when the coup happened, because I swear I died a little bit that day. And just like you said, they call it the forgotten war, but actually everyone sees the war, but they say, we think there is a war, but they see it and they know it. So it's overlooked, not only forgotten. Mm-hmm. Now, going back to the climate change part, climate change was never actually on top of the agenda when it comes to Sudan. And the question is, who is really putting the agenda for Sudanese people? And I asked this question many times, because in many meetings when I talk about climate change, they say, oh, we don't think this is the priority. And guess who normally tells me so? Is the international community. It was never the Sudanese. Versus every time I go to people, Sudanese people, they say, I don't think we will have any harvest this year. I think we're going to have a famine. I think we will drown this year. And even in the war, when we were talking to people and say, this year we will have a flood, no one really listened, including all of the UN agencies. And we had a flood, July and August 2024. And imagine that the size of land that was flooded by water was bigger than Germany in size.
It's quite intense.
Yes, and actually it was only the 5 states that will remain safe relevantly. So imagine that 8 million people fled to these relevantly safe states, only to find themselves have to flee again for a second or third or fourth time, because they are basically underwater. And even more, we had cholera breakout before the flood. And we were talking to the UN agencies and say, hey, you are building a cholera isolation center in a flood runway and a drain. So, and it happened, they got flooded. And you can imagine how many medicals, how many germs, how many things happen in that water that is spread in the whole 5 states, which is exactly bigger than Germany in size. So climate change and conflict happen. And in Sudan specifically, climate change can make the impacts of the conflict very bad, but the opposite is also true. Climate change can actually trigger conflicts. And the previous Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, said it in 2007 about the war in Darfur. And if you don't know what happened in Darfur in 2023, then you definitely don't know about this war, because the Janjaweed or the RSF were actually documented in the new history there, where al-Bashir created this militia to really do all the horrible things on behalf of the army because he was wanted and his people by the ICC. So everything is so connected together. Climate change, fights over natural resources, over water, over land, triggered conflict, triggered creating a militia. 20 years later, the militia is becoming bigger than the army. And then now not only the Darfurians, but the whole Sudanese people are suffering from this war. Of course. And gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so many more questions, but I really have to. Yes, please, now, audience. Is a good time to hand the mic to the audience. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand.
By the time the mic reached the audience, I just want to say something. Maybe you will feel that you're hopeless and you're helpless and you can't really do much. But actually, Germany is one of the biggest countries in terms of the political influence, in terms of their existence in the EU and the different governance structures, in terms of the resources that Germany gives as aid, as development, as many things. And you, one, as voters, but two, as citizens of this country, you can very much influence the decisions and influence who get elected and influence how is the country as Germany is actually proceeding their external and foreign policies towards countries like Sudan and many, many more countries, DRC. And I mean, I can name how many conflicts are happening in the world right now. But you definitely have the power to change that. And just to show you this, I have a small exercise I want to make it with all of you, if you want to. Ready? Okay. So we will actually mock the rain. Okay? How we will be mocking the rain? Simply, and I will not use the mic because I need my hands. One finger and one dot. See? Now 2 fingers. 3 fingers. 4 fingers, only the tip of the fingers. Do you feel the rain? Now 5 fingers. So just like the rain, we can start with a small drop, but all of us can make an actual rain. Thank you.
Okay, do I see any questions? A bit bright in here, so please raise your hand a little bit higher.
If I may say quickly, the Sudanese thing has been considered as one of the biggest crises in the world. Talking about hunger, about bombing, about killing, about looted houses, about people who had to leave their places and to be displaced and now in the diasporas. Being the biggest crisis in the world is not my word, is what the UN agency says. So we as directors and you as loving people and audiences, we can't support the whole Sudan. But what we can do, I'm sure we all liked and loved Lucan and Wilson. Lucan and Wilson are now in Nairobi. They need to have education, to have food, to have a shelter. We are having a campaign. My colleagues will be standing at the doors, and when you go out, you can support them by having the code. And we hope that maybe Wilson and Nelson and Lucan can get a better life. This may be our show of solidarity and support to these young children.
Just a question. I'm not so informed about the Sudan at the moment. A little bit, but not as strong as it should be. this singing woman, what was the intention of this song? You had you did sing at the end of at the.
Wenn Sie Ihre Frage auf Deutsch stellen wollen, dann können Sie das gerne tun. Ich übersetze für Sie.
Ja, was war das für ein Gesang, ein Singsang?
An welcher Stelle?
Ja, ich meine, es war ja nicht zu überhören.
Ja, das stimmt. Ach so, Entschuldigung. She was asking about the song that you were singing earlier.
That's you.
So as a way to fire up the demonstration and lift the spirit, we normally sing revolutionary songs inside of in the street, but also as we are marching in the street. And the song I was singing, there were two actually. One was saying revolution is by people, power goes back to the people. Al-Askar al-Sakanat means the army should go back to their places, and Al-Janjaweed al-Hal says that the militia should be dismantled, basically. And the second one about Khartoum, it's about Khartoum. It says, sing, my dear Khartoum. You can use any instrument in your singing. Shine the light from the forehead of your myrtles. Your songs and be rest. This is us, your kids. We are here. We came back to protect you. This is us. People said we left. People said we die, but we live forever. We hug you, and you stay in rest inside of us. It's basically for Khartoum. Thank you.
Thank you. This was the sense of the what you. Yeah.
There is a question here in the front, I think. There.
Hello, thank you for wonderful film. I really enjoyed. I have two questions. So in the film, you said we're trying to. You ask questions about identity. Are we Africans? Are we Arabs? So because I don't know much about background information about your country, can you give us some little bit of background information? And also in the film, somebody said the foreign countries, neighboring countries, acting like vultures. So what do you mean by that? And can you tell us a little bit about geopolitics, what is going on regarding the conflict?
Sudan is being geographically in an intersection. It's at the Red Sea and a sub-Saharan in the African continent. And it's very diverse. You have the Sahara, the Sub-Sahara, the Savannah, and the Equatorial regions. Most people in Sudan speak the Arabic language, which is related to Islam. And those people who are influenced by this Arabic language and Arabic culture are creating a narrative that the whole Sudan should be an Arab country. But there are people from other religions and other cultures and very diverse, and they want to claim their own heritage and their own culture. And a lot of people see that this is the root of the conflict in Sudan, that it's something between claiming Africanity and the Pan-Africanism, the Pan-Arabism. It shouldn't be in this way, and it shouldn't be in this mess. It could be a very diverse, colorful, nice, intersecting country and culture, but unfortunately what happened that both sides were very tough in this, and it ended up to having wars, different wars in the last 100 years under different titles. Some people are talking about democracy, more democracy. People are talking about having Arab culture being dominant. Others saying about we want to draw a new map for Sudan, but in its roots, it's this conflict between what we are and what we are trying to tell who we are. Maybe in Mauritania, in Somalia, in other different countries like Brazil, maybe we have the same example. So it's a question and the problem and the conflict of power relation, and a question and the problem of dominance in Sudan. We are missing and lacking a lot of tolerance in the previous generations until now. Maybe.
I think just going a bit deeper and a bit further in the history, it started basically with the colonization. Sudan was colonized first by the Turkish. I mean, they were not Turkish. It was the Ottoman Empire at that time, and the only way to be closer to Khidewi or the soldiers of the Ottoman Empire was to be lighter or to be educated, which was education was also very limited to very level, like a certain level of people and ethnicity. And then we had the Mahdi revolution. A lot of things happened. At-Taishi, who came after the Mahdi, forced a lot of his people to move from the west to the east and the middle. And then a lot of people said, oh, why they are coming here? So we are talking about accumulative hate and racism that was built in the Sudanese community since the 17th or the 19th, 17th century. And what made it really explode in the last years is that the Islamist regime by al-Bashir really played on this. If they really played on it. So they made it one of the biggest sticks that they actually fragmented the social fabric in Sudan. It was the way he created the Janjaweed, because the Janjaweed at the beginning, which is the RSF militia at the moment, was only the Arabic groups in Darfur. So he actually armed the Arabic groups in Darfur against the African origin, Arabic origin, African origin groups. And it was why I said earlier it was about climate change, is because the African origin troops own the land and the farms, and the Arabic origin troops were nomads. So when the fight happened, he and his people decided to arm the Arabic rooted groups and favor them over the African origin troops and who actually own the land. And these problems are still there. If you are following what happened in Darfur during this war and how the genocide happened against al-Masalit and the hate speech that was there, and the videos, they were slaughtering each other on the video. So they fueled and played on this card so much to the point that the Sudanese community for 30 years, imagine if you are hearing that you are ugly. It doesn't matter if you are a beauty queen, but you are hearing that you are ugly for 30 years continuously. Then at some point during this 30 years, you would actually believe it. And this is exactly what happened to the Sudanese people. And this is exactly why the revolution came, to fight all of this. And we were actually succeeding. And this is why the coup happened and the war happened, because they knew that if the Sudanese fabric actually came together, and they knew if that all of the lies they were telling the people over 30 years now proved to be wrong, then there is no way that they will come back. And basically this is why the coup happened, and this is why the war happened, just to dismantle all of the positive things that the revolution was actually building and all of the achievements that we actually did since April 2020, no, 2018 actually, 2019. Thank you.
Yeah, what about the new agents of colonialism in Sudan?
Yes, it's also a long story, but to cut it short, I think the war in Sudan is played by Sudanese actors, but if you have a chess board, then the players will never move themselves, huh?
Well, come on, yes, maybe we have to talk about UAE, we have to talk about Saudi Arabia, we have to talk about Egypt, but we have to talk about EU. the first ones who supported and built it and funded the rapid forces were the EU. The Khartoum process was an agreement that this militia protect Europe from the immigrants. And that's where they got the first funding from. So it's, yeah, let's talk about Emirates, let's talk about Saudi Arabia, let's talk about Egypt, about Russia, about Iran, about name it. But let's talk about Europe. They are playing a brutal role, and they did play a brutal role in pushing away democracy from Sudan, keeping the dictatorship supported, and now in inflaming this war. So if we want to point fingers, we have to point fingers to the whole world as Sudanese people. And this is really sad. It's the same thing as you are asking about the identity thing, how it happened and why it happened, how could it happen? It is the same thing that happened in Yugoslavia. We had the Bosnians, the Montenegrins, the Serbs, and it happened for 4 or 5 years. People were killed in the middle of Europe. No one gave a damn for this.
In fact, we spoke a lot about the root causes of the war and why the war happened. But we speak even less and less about how to stop the war. And I really think that this is a problematic approach because, yes, I understand a lot of people want to understand the history, the root causes, and so on. But guys, people are dying. There's no time for you to understand. Just stop the war and then I will explain to you later. Really, it's that urgent.
We have another question in the back.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Talal. So I came to know Talal from Jota Institute, Sudan, like almost 10 years ago while I was studying in Germany, and then to do my Weiterbildung and so on. So I'm a very active member here in the Sudanese community in München. We are Gemeinnutzung Verein, Sudanese. And we always, when we do demonstrations, we get people passing by and asking us, what do you want from us to help you with? And the first thing I say, just stop complicating the matter, because it was actually very good that the film name is KHARTOUM. And by the time we were doing the revolution, 2018, there was this Khartoum process still active. So if people now Google Khartoum, the website Khartoum process is there. EU was actually really having an agreement to provide money and training for RSF militia to stop immigrants coming from sub-Saharan countries through Sudan. And this makes them very powerful army to the point that they thought about, okay, and this is all documented. You can even find it online. It reached the point that, okay, you have international relationship, EU funding you, US funding you, you are not the army of the country itself. And then at some point, the revolution happened because the army itself was corrupt. We have this regime. And more or less, by the Sudanese youth, which was actually, we are a very young society actually. More than 75% of the population is less than 40 years old actually. And you have a percentage of 75% of the people want a revolution. We don't want military guys in power. The same right a German citizen exercise, you have a civilian government, we want the same. But if European countries keep funding militias and army to protect their borders, you are killing us complicitly. And this is quite problematic, right? Because for Europe, there is an immigration problem. For us, it's our life. And I'm half German now. My daughters are here German. I'm Sudanese. My rest of family is in Sudan. And I cannot influence this except by educating people. You cannot make an island that is beautiful and you live with it, and then you burn everywhere else just to protect yourself. And this is quite problematic. And I'm very happy that the film name is KHARTOUM, because it opens the eyes of people when they Google KHARTOUM to find all this information. And it's not like pointing fingers. It's the life we live in today. It's super complicated. And I'm quite happy it wasn't ethnographic movies that, okay, Africa, it's nice, let's look at it. Actually, I was much crying all the movie because my family went through everything shown in the movie while I was here, doing my 40 hours per week, trying to get my taxes and doing everything. So we live two different lives in the same time scale. So we are here, while what you have seen in the film was been happening in Sudan since 3 years at least. And part of this is not like forgotten war. It's actually something you contribute to complicating, and you act like you don't. And I don't know how this can be solved, but I was at some point quite sad and upset. But at the same time, when I get those questions, I ask myself, is it really people do not know? Because the immigration problem is huge, the border control, the stuff. And if you just go deeper with the questions, you're gonna find these links. It's just a couple of clicks away. And I'm quite thankful for you to Talal. Really, it was very, very much tense movie, like for me, actually. I was just crying all over the place. But at the same time, it was done in a way, it's a movie. It's not like pointing finger or something. It's just actual people's lives. And I hope that this really open people's eyes and ears and hearts so that they really think, okay, can we do something? And I think there is a lot here in Germany we can do. Thanks a lot.
Yes, you can. And I'm sorry we are taking more time. But let me ask Nisreen to translate for me. أول حاجة أنتوا الناخبين وأنتوا اللي بتقدروا تخلقوا وتأثروا على السياسات بتاعت الدولة.
First of all, you are the voters and you are the ones who can actually change and influence the policies of the country.
الحاجة الثانية إحنا ما عايزين أي بنوك أوروبية أو أي بنوك دولية تحتضن الأموال بتاعت الجيش السوداني أو الدعم السريع.
Secondly, we don't want any European banks or international banks to hold the money of the Sudanese army or the RSF.
ثالث حاجة، لا إحنا في أفريقيا ولا في العالم العربي ولا في جنوب العالم بنعرف نعمل سلاح. مصانع السلاح موجودة في فرنسا، في ألمانيا، في إيطاليا وفي أسبانيا. السلاح بيجينا من هناك. وقفوا الهجرة بتاعت السلاح من الشمال للجنوب.
Third, actually, we in the global south and in Africa and in Sudan, we don't know how to make weapons. Weapons actually get exported to us from Europe, from France, from Italy, from Germany, yes, itself. And of course, now China is a bigger player, and Russia, of course. But I mean, in general, stop the migration of armies to Africa. So, yeah.
في 2013 كان في انتفاضة ديمقراطية عظيمة في الخليج العربي في البحرين. الانتفاضة دي وقدت بسبب استطاعة حكومة البحرين على الحصول على دبابات بانسر من الحكومة الألمانية. الدبابات البانسر دي عندها القدرة على خوض حرب الشوارع.
In 2013, there was a great revolution in the Gulf region, specifically Bahrain, yes, and this revolution was actually killed before it started because the Bahrainian government got a Panther tanks from Germany, and these tanks can actually have street wars.
إحنا ما محتاجين للتضامن بس، إحنا محتاجين للتصويت ومحتاجين للتأثير ومحتاجين لأنه الشعب الألماني وكل شعوب العالم تتذكر إنه هي نفسها في يوم من الأيام عاشت مأساة شبيهة للمأساة اللي إحنا بنعيشها الليلة.
We don't want only solidarity. We want actions and influence, and we want the rest of the world, and especially a country like Germany, to remember that they themselves, as Germans and as different countries of the world, lived such hard times in the past. And I think there was a promise of never again, but it's keep happening. So this is from me, the last part.
I think we are running out of time, so I'm very, very sorry. But all of our guests will stay here for a little bit longer, I hope. So if you have any urgent questions, we can still hang outside. Thank you so much for coming and for engaging in the discussion.